All right, so I'm like literally so hungry right now, and I did not think too hard about where I was getting my food today. So I've just got a big old huge order from Chick-fil-A for you all today, which should be perfectly fine for everyone. I mean, I know it's gonna be perfectly fine for me. You know, like literally, I got out of my first class and I was like, Jesus, I am so hungry. And then right before my second class started, I was like, you know what? I'm gonna have Chick-fil-A and I'm gonna absolutely like pig out today. This isn't really, I guess this probably isn't really pigging out because I didn't really, I mean, I got like a lot of food, but it's not like a super insane, ridiculous amount of food like I was expecting to get, because I thought I was gonna get like, I have fries and 2 12-count nuggets, but I thought I was gonna be like getting all this plus like 2 chicken sandwiches, some tenders, maybe like some mac and cheese as a side as well. I really thought that I was gonna go like, I really thought today was the day I was gonna go Chick-fil-A psycho. But I didn't, so we're all good. So I'm just gonna sit here and enjoy this and talk to you all while I do it. It's funny, last night, I went to bed. Last night I didn't like fall asleep until probably like 2. Which sucks for me because today's my early day. So like it's one of my early days because I have my first stage management class at 9 a.m. But you have to remember that I live an hour away from campus, which means that I actually have to leave the house at 7:30 and start driving to campus. So that I can get here and park. That way I still have enough time to walk to class, because I gotta walk like a super absurd distance just to get to my class. And so, today was a really fun day in stage management. Because we watched, a documentary and we had a small discussion after. Because it was about Cirque du Soleil's, the documentary was about Cirque du Soleil's show called Ka, which premiered at the MGM Grand Hotel and Casino in Vegas. And so we watched that, and he told us beforehand that it encompasses the whole show, so not just the stage management side. But we would end up seeing the stage management, the lead stage manager, a few times throughout the documentary, which we did. The documentary was awesome, by the way. It was so good. I love anything that has to do with Cirque du Soleil, because that stuff is so like, it is like performance art. It's not too different from theater, but it just feels so like mystical and magical to hear about Cirque du Soleil specifically. Like, not the regular circus, specifically Cirque du Soleil. And it started, so the show is called Ka, and the director, because Cirque du Soleil is based out of Montreal, Canada, which has a lot of French speakers. And so, the director was a French guy. A lot of the designers were French. But of course, it's such a huge company that, of course, they've got people from every nationality a part of it. But the director was a French guy, or I know he spoke French at the very least. Because the first time we see him, he's speaking French to the camera. But there's parts like towards the middle of the documentary where he's speaking like really good English. Like, he doesn't even sound French when he speaks English. So, let's see. They told us about, in the documentary, they said about how like the design concept was sort of based around like evolution and the void and like the hero's journey or something like that. And they drew a diagram on the screen for us. About, in the beginning, the hero will climb out of the water onto the beach, up a cliff, down the cliff, into a meadow, and then into a city. And each different one of those things represents a different point in the story or in the character's life. Oh, I'm dying. And so that was really cool. And then they talked about how the set designer drew inspiration from a guy who made some kind of weird short film called The Other Side of the Moon that the guy apparently shot in and starred in himself. Something like that. It was weird. They showed us a little bit of it. It was kind of weird. And this is back from like 2003, 2002, back when the show was still in production. And so, the show's called Ka once again, and the show apparently took a lot from Eastern culture, like Japan and China, and those areas. Nugget number 1. So there's a lot of like martial. So they talked about how they were doing a lot of martial arts, which is something that that no one had ever really seen in a Cirque du Soleil show before. And that's when we got taken into like a 3D model of what the designer, because they built their own theater inside of the Grand Hotel and Casino just for this show. The theater is built for Ka specifically. And so he said that he wanted the theater to have a lot of sort of Asian inspired feel, like you're going, like whenever you enter the theater, you're inside of a temple or a monastery or something like that, which I thought was really cool. And since it's a Cirque du Soleil show, there's obviously a lot of acrobatics and high flying stunts and that kind of thing. And so the way that the stage was built, the stage didn't really have a floor. It had a giant 25 by like 90 foot platform in the center that could move up and down and sideways, and it could turn diagonally in three-dimensional space. And what it did is it had spikes, or not really spikes, it had poles that would come out of the floor that the performers would swing around and climb on and that kind of thing. And then directly underneath that platform was just an open space where they'd either have a safety net or a gigantic crash pad, because there are certain parts in the show where the performers are supposed to fall off of that platform down onto the crash pad. After the documentary was over, my professor told me in the class that in 2013, apparently, one actor apparently did fall off of the stage, when they weren't supposed to, and they actually ended up dying, because at that point in the show, it's like the final fight scene of the show, and with the way that the stage is oriented, they can't put a safety net or a crash pad underneath it. And so, but then, during those scenes where the stage is lifted up like this, they usually have they'll have harnesses on them that keep them from falling down if they don't want to. But then one person's harness broke and they fell easily. They fell at least 60 feet, maybe 90 feet on just the hard ground concrete floor that was down below. And he didn't tell us the details about what it was like, but the person apparently, this acrobat apparently died after the impact. And he said that my professor said that after the incident, they had this whole OSHA investigation and waivers and fees coming through and that kind of thing, all this stuff that happens whenever a death occurs in the theater. And because of that, they completely reworked that final fight scene to not be so dangerous, I guess, because I don't know if they made it so that they would be able to put in the safety net below the stage, but he said that the way that they redid the fight scene made a lot more sense for the story, like it was more symbolic for the story. And so it was really awesome. And so and he said that this major accident happened the night after he himself went to see the show in Vegas, which is insane, I guess. But I guess imagine if he was there that night that it did happen. The documentary took us around and showed us all the different designers, like the lighting, props, costumes, makeup, sound, the set itself. All of it was awesome. The set, the big stage that could move around, was actually interactive, because they had certain programs that they created for the show where the actors would step onto the platform and it would be like rippling of water, or it would look like they were underwater, depending. And that was so cool. The props designer talked about how they didn't know that they had no clue how big the venue was going to be. They only had reference for their rehearsal facility. A lot of the props actually had to be completely reworked because the props master and the props team had no idea that the audience would be sitting so far away, because they didn't know that the theater would be huge. Like, this was a theater that could probably easily seat 1,000 people, if not more. And so that's a huge theater. It's an absolutely monstrous theater. And so they actually had to redo a lot of the props, because she said, the props master said that they put like way too much detail in a lot of the props because they didn't know how big the theater would actually be. So they had to completely redo a bunch of the props to make them less detailed but bigger, so that the audience could see them better. And the same went for like a lot of the costumes and the makeup as well. A lot of the makeup and costumes had to be completely reworked whenever they finally got into the theater space, which would be a nightmare, honestly. I remember when I got to the lighting designer, the lighting designer didn't really, I don't really remember what the lighting designer said, but the shot that they showed right there, it was this guy dying in the center of the big stage while it's like kind of tilted downward, so the audience can see. And they've got a big spotlight right there on the guy dying and the guy like holding him as he dies. And I remember seeing, if you looked behind the stage, you would have seen a big like floodlight coming through, maybe almost like the sunrise or the sunset. That was a really cool lighting thing that I saw. So, one of my favorite parts, though, is when they got to the sound designer. And the sound designer talked about how it wasn't necessarily the sound design of the show itself. What it was what it was instead was the theater had, I think it was like 2,500 speakers littered throughout the theater in different places. And this is something that Cirque du Soleil has done before. They'll put speakers in the backs, in the seats that the audience members sit in. And like they'll put them like the headrest will be right here, and they'll put a speaker right there to make the sound feel closer than it really is, without the sound necessarily being louder. So sound engineering has got to be one of the most insane, or is one of the most insane things that happens in the theater. But it's just one of those things that almost nobody notices, because it's not glamorous or anything like that. because Cirque du Soleil had another show that opened up in like 2008 called Beatles Love, which is of course about the Beatles, and they did the same thing where they built the theater for that show, and that theater had over 6,000 speakers in the theater, and with like an even bigger audience, a giant monster-sized stage that they did insane stuff with, and then of course they had like 3 speakers in every seat to make the sound feel closer. It's insane. So, and then they got to like, right, so it all leads back to me being in my stage management class. We talked about how the cast for Ka, just the performers, was easily over 100 people. 100 people in this cast. That doesn't include crew. That doesn't include technicians. That doesn't include designers or production crew or anything like that. That is just performers. So as the stage manager, you gotta just like, and he said there was probably a stage management team of like 10 people. And that's a huge stage management team. Because the most stage managers I've ever worked with on one show was only 3. It's downright psycho. And so, what was I saying? Oh, yeah. So, with a cast of over 100 people, God, I'm drooling because this is so good. With a cast of over 100 people, that's a lot of emergency contact information you have to get. Yeah, that's a lot of emergency contact information. That's a lot. That is a big ass rehearsal report at the end of it all. At the end of a rehearsal. And another thing, that's a lot of rehearsal reports because the show was in production for 2 years before it opened in Las Vegas. I think the show opened in 2004. And it costed more to produce the show, to produce Ka, than every single Broadway show that opened on Broadway that year combined. The show easily could have cost like $1 billion to produce. Maybe not that high, but that's probably not a super exaggeration. That documentary was so cool. But it's just when you think about it realistically, that would be an absolute nightmare to have to stage manage. Like insane. Absolutely insane. No. Oh. I don't even remember what I was saying. No, I think I was saying something about all the safety stuff that you have to consider. Just the safety stuff that the stage manager have to consider for that show. I could never. I don't want to be a stage manager. But even if I wanted to be a stage manager, I could never even fathom the difficulty of stage managing a show like that, which is probably why you need a team of 10 people to stage manage one show. It's absolutely insane. But that will do it for this video. If you all enjoyed listening to me listening to me talk about how awesome this COD documentary was on Cirque du Soleil, I think you can find it on YouTube, unless it's a private video, which maybe it was. But yeah, so if you enjoyed this video, then please remember to leave a like, comment, and subscribe to my channel to see more content just like this in the future. Whenever you all do that for me, helps me stay motivated to make more content for you all in the future. Once again, thank you all for watching. Until next time, bye.